Trapped by the Narcissist. Work. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The narcissist likes to trap the victim, whether it be the intimate partner primary source, a non-intimate secondary source, an intimate partner secondary source, or even tertiary sources, because by trapping an individual, this allows the narcissist to reinforce their fantasy of power. It allows the narcissist to assert control over that individual and to drink deep of the fuel that is invariably provided by that person. Previously, I've spoken about how the narcissist utilizes the car to trap a victim, and also how a narcissist may well trap the individual in the home, for example, the kitchen. And now, I'm going to provide you with a scenario where the narcissist traps an appropriate victim in the workplace. The office was a crucible, a stage where power was performed with ruthless precision. At its apex stood Victoria, the narcissist, a woman whose elegance was a weapon, whose smile was the snare. She was the director, the queen of this corporate hive, her authority absolute, a gaze a scalpel that dissected those who dared meet it. Her office, all glass and chrome, was a mirror of her, cold, reflective, designed to amplify her presence. And now, within its confines, she had cornered her prey, Daniel, a man whose quiet decency had proven to be a beacon to her predatory instincts. Daniel stood against the wall, his back pressed to the corner where two plates of glass met, the city sprawling indifferently below. He was a man of average build and remarkable, save for a warmth that came from his eyes, a warmth that betrayed his nature. He radiated kindness, a fuel source that Victoria craved with a hunger that gnawed at her core. He was married, a fact that only sharpened her desire, for what greater triumph was there than to claim that which belonged to another? His wedding band glinted under the lights, a silent protest that she intended to crush. Victoria had summoned him to her office under the guise of a late report, a pretext so flimsy it barely concealed her intent. It was, of course, triangulation. The door was closed, the blinds half drawn, the air thick with the scent of her perfume, a musky, commanding fragrance that invaded his senses. She stood too close, her body angled to block his escape, her presence a physical force that pinned him like a specimen under glass. Her tailored suit hugged her form, a deliberate choice to amplify her allure, and her heels clicked with predatory intent as she advanced. "Daniel," she purred, "you've been so diligent lately. It's admirable." Her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, those twin voids that glittered. She leant forward, her hand brushing his arm, a touch that lingered too long, her fingers tracing the fabric of his shirt as if claiming territory. "But I wonder, are you giving me everything you've got?" Daniel stiffened, his heart a drumbeat in his chest. He recoiled, sensing the trap. Yet his innate desire to please, to avoid conflict, tethered him to the moment. "I've been working hard, Victoria," he said, his voice steady but strained, his eyes fixed on a point beyond her shoulder. "The report's nearly done. I'll have it by tomorrow." Her laugh was a low, throaty sound laced with mockery. "Oh, Daniel, always so proper." She stepped closer, her body now inches from his, the heat of her presence a violation. She tilted her head, her hair cascading in a calculated arc, and her hand moved to his tie, tugging it gently, a gesture both playful and possessive. "You don't need to be so formal with me. We're close, aren't we?" He swallowed, his throat dry, his mind a battlefield. He recognized every nuance of her tone, every shift in her posture, and it screamed danger to him. Yet his conditioning, forged in a life of appeasing others, made defiance feel like betrayal. He loved his wife, Sarah, a woman whose quiet strength anchored him. The thought of her steadied him, a lifeline in the suffocating moment. "I'm just here to do my job," he said, his voice firmer though his hands trembled at his sides. Victoria's eyes narrowed, a flicker of rage igniting. Resistance was an affront to her, a challenge to her omnipotence. Her fury, however, remained cloaked in seduction. "Your job," she murmured, her hand sliding up his chest, her nails grazing his shirt, "is to please me, Daniel. And I'm not pleased. Yet." Her words dripped with innuendo, her breath warm against his ear as she leaned in, her body pressing closer, trapping him against the glass. He flinched, his back pressing harder into the corner, the cold surface a stark contrast to the heat of her proximity. His mind screamed at him to push her away, to flee, but her authority loomed. She was his boss, her word was law, her whims the arbiter of his career. She, of course, knew this, and wielded it like a whip. "You wouldn't want to disappoint me," she whispered, her voice now edged with threat, "would you? I can make things difficult for you, for your little family." The mention of his family was a dagger twisted in his gut. He was vulnerable through his empathy. She instinctively knew this and exploited it. His eyes darted to the door, a futile hope of escape, but her body blocked his path, her stance deliberate, by way of a barricade. She was savouring the moment, her control absolute, his fear a delicacy on which he gorged. "Victoria, please," he said, his voice cracking, a plea that shamed him. "I'm married. I don't want this." The words were a shield, but they were weak against her arsenal. His hands rose, hovering uncertainly, wanting to push her back, but fearing the consequences. He faced this dilemma. To resist was to risk annihilation, yet to comply was to betray himself. Her smile widened, a Cheshire grin that revelled in his distress. "Oh, Daniel," she cooed, her hand now cupping his jaw, forcing his gaze to meet hers. "You don't get to decide what you want, not with me." Her thumb traced his lower lip, a violation masquerading as affection, and her other hand slid to his waist, her fingers digging into his side with just enough pressure to imply pain. "You're mine to play with, and you will play." His breath hitched, panic rising like bile. Her spell was suffocating, her words weaving a web that entangled his resolve. He saw her not as a woman, but as a void, a black hole that devoured light. But his need to see good in others faltered, whispering that perhaps compliance would, maybe, just end this nightmare. The thought sickened him, a betrayal of his wife, a betrayal of himself, but the corner offered no escape. Victoria's body a prison, her touch a chain. She sensed his wavering, her predator's instinct honed to detect this weakness. "Good boy," she murmured, her lips brushing his ear, her body now flush against his, a deliberate invasion. "Just give in, it's easier that way." Her hand slid lower to his groin, a blatant provocation, and her eyes gleamed with triumph, certain of her victory. But Daniel's love for his wife was a fortress, battered but unbroken. He clenched his fists, his nails biting into his palms, the pain grounding him. "No," he said, the word rebellion small but seismic. "I won't do this." His voice was low, trembling, but resolute. Victoria froze, her mask slipping for a fraction of a second, revealing the abyss beneath. Rage ignited in her eyes, an inferno that threatened to consume him. "You dare say no to me?" she hissed, her hand tightening on his jaw, her nails digging into his skin. "You'll regret this, Daniel. I'll make sure of it." Her voice was venomous, her threat a promise, her control fraying at his defiance. He braced himself, expecting her to escalate, to unleash the full fury of her ignited fury. But before she could, the door clicked open, a sound that shattered the moment like glass. Another colleague, Rachel, stepped inside, her expression oblivious to the tableau before her. "Victoria, the client's on the line." "Oh, sorry, am I interrupting?" Victoria's transformation was instantaneous, a chameleon shift. She stepped back, her body language morphing from predator to professional, her smile a mask of congeniality. "Not at all, Rachel," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "Daniel and I were just discussing his report." Her eyes flicked to Daniel, a warning look that pierced. Stay silent or suffer. Daniel exhaled, his body sagging against the wall, relief and dread warring within him. Rachel's presence was a reprieve, but Victoria's gaze promised retribution. He nodded mutely, his throat too tight for words. Rachel hesitated, sensing the tension but unable to name it. "Right, well, they're waiting," she said, gesturing towards the phone. Victoria nodded, her composure flawless, and moved to her desk, her heels clicking with deliberate calm. "Daniel, we'll finish this later," she said, her tone casual but laced with menace, a reminder that her control was merely paused. It was not relinquished. Daniel seized the chance to escape, murmuring a vague excuse as he slipped past Rachel and out the door. The corridor felt like freedom, the air cooler, but his heart still raced, his skin crawling from her touch. He knew the burden. She would not stop. She demanded submission. She demanded him. In the safety of the break room, he sank into a chair, his hands shaking as he clutched his phone. Sarah's photo smiled from the screen, a beacon of love that steadied him. He wanted to tell her to unburden himself, but fear stopped him. Fear of Victoria's reach, her ability to twist truth into lies. Victoria's power lingered, a shadow over him, but his resistance had sparked a flicker of rejection. He would fight, for Sarah, for himself, against the predator who sought to claim him. Victoria, back in her office, stared out of the window. Daniel's defiance was a wound, but she was not focused on him now. He was elsewhere and forgotten about. Her hunger was insatiable. Her need for dominance remained absolute. She picked up the phone and took the call, ready to ensnare alternative prey.